Three. We are live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Tuesday live weekly whiskey stream. Well, actually, not whiskey anymore, is it? We do tequila and rum now. We have rum today. I'm excited about the rum. Welcome back to another weekly live stream. My name is Sam Green. I am Scribe of Spirits. I'm joined today by the master distiller of the Rum Co of Fiji, Mr. Liam Costello. Liam, welcome. Excited to have you as the first rum on the channel.
Oh, wow. Bulavanaka. And welcome to where I am in Ballarat. It's about 10 degrees, windy and rainy. Nothing like Fiji where it's nice and warm and probably sunny. Thank you to lockdown. That's where I've been for the last 12 months, running the stills and the rums from remote control 4,000 kilometers away. It's amazing what you can do. It's amazing what you can do over the internet.
So where did you say you were right now again?
I'm in Ballarat in Australia, which is about 1 hour's drive west of Melbourne. We've just come out of our own lockdown, whilst Fiji is really struggling through a serious bout of lockdown with coronavirus in there, which they managed to avoid for the last 12 months, but it's caught up to them.
Oof. Well, at least, they're not running blindly. At least they have some, experience from what everyone else has experienced around the world, so they know a little bit about what to do and what not to do.
Yes, they do. We all do. We're all becoming used to it.
I tell you, I got back behind the bar for the first time last week since, before COVID. My feet hurt, my back hurt, but I was so happy. It was nice to be back out in the world, back at work, back, slinging drinks and pulling beers, pulling a good pint. That's what my bar does. We do a lot of pints.
Well, Sam, we were lucky enough as well. We had a big trade show for the consumers called Whiskey Live, and it was in Canberra. And myself and my boss and our brand and marketing manager, Lucy, we attended and ran our trade stand, and seriously, for three 3-hour sessions, we were flat out talking, telling stories about rum that we hadn't done for so long, and we didn't have time to look at our phone. We didn't have time to go for a bathroom stop. We didn't have time to talk to each other. The consumers were so happy just to be out, and we were so happy to be out. It was really an awesome couple of days. So I understand what you're saying.
Whiskey Live.
It's good to
it's a great show
with people.
Oh my God, it's so nice. And it's nice to be able to communicate in person too. People kept calling the bar the other weekend. I'm like, all right, you know what? The phone rings. Hello, it's Rum Daily Pint. Yes, we are reopened. Oh, that's what I was going to ask. See you soon. Great. See you soon. Thank you. Instead of, hey, Daily Pint, are you open? Yes, we are. It's, hey, we're open again. Come give us your money.
Bring a friend. 10.
Bring all the friends. So let's talk rum. Like I mentioned, you're the first rum I've had on this channel. I did a review recently of the Foursquare Sassafras, but you're the first rum I've really had the chance to sit down with and do a live stream with. I'm excited to have Richard Seal come join me in August. That's going to be a fun one. The problem is going to be not drinking through all of my Foursquare that I have at home, because I've been enjoying it so much. Thankfully, I think I might have a new rum to satisfy the cravings, so I can, save some of my Foursquare before I talk with Richard.
Well, that's good. I'm privileged to be the first rum on your show. Thank you very much for thinking about us or choosing us. I don't know how you managed to do that, but we're very grateful to be able to.
I've known Roger Reeves for several years.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Roger, and your connection with Sam. That's fantastic.
Good guy. So I reached out to Tom Levron, who put me back in touch with Roger, and the three of us got it all sorted to get bottled and get you here and nerd out on rum. So let's do exactly that. Tell me about Rum Co Fiji. Tell me about yourself. How did you get started in rum? You've been with these guys for like 15, 16 years now, yeah?
Well, it's a long story. I'll try and give you the short version of it. And probably about.
We got 2 hours. Don't worry about being short.
Well, 40 years ago, I turned up for work on my first day at a place in Queensland called Beanley Rum. and I was about 20 years of age. Now you can do your mathematics and figure out how ancient I am. But my father did tell me, he said, son, don't worry about age, it's just a number. And the human race is a marathon, not a sprint. So the bigger the number, apparently the better result. So anyway, Dad just turned 94, so maybe I've got a few more good years left in me. But anyway, I turned up for work on the first day at Bentley Rum, 20-year-old kid, and this old bloke, probably about my age, handed me this 64-page exercise book, because we didn't have iPhones or tablets or computers back then. And he said, son, you should read this. I said, I will. This is how you make rum. Okay, you should read it now. Why? I'm leaving. When? Today. And he left. So lucky for me, I was 20 years of age. I already knew everything, so it wasn't a problem. If you handed me that book today, it would have kept me up late at night trying to figure out how to make rum. But then there was another old guy there about my age, and he worked for the Australian Customs, and he put his arm around my shoulder and he said, son, don't worry. If you listen to me, I'll help you through this. I've been around this distillery since I started work. So pretty much know everything you need to know. So get a pen and piece of paper and write this down. I said, okay. So he said to me, key phrase to take into the 1980s making rum. Yep, I'm listening hard. Pay attention. Okay, write that down. Now I'll give you 4 simple words, and if you follow these 4 simple words, well, you should be okay. Word number 1, learn. Okay, learn all you can about what you do. Okay. Word number 2, he said, try. Now that you've learnt it, try it. No point knowing something and not doing anything with it. Otherwise, may as well not know it at all. So go and try. But you got to make mistakes, and then you'll learn from those mistakes. Third word is stay. Stay to the end. Now that you've started, stay to the end. Don't be a beat the traffic type of person where you got to watch your footy teams play their game, and 10 minutes, 15 minutes before full time, they're losing. So you say, come on, kids, let's get out of here. Let's beat the traffic. Don't be a beat the traffic person. Stay to the end, because usually it's in the last few minutes that your team will come around and win. So last word was care. He said, care a little, watch what happens, care a lot, and watch the miracle. So with those, pay attention, learn, try, stay, and care. I went off into making rum, and I don't know how many years later I ended up in Fiji at a rum distillery that was built the same year I started making rum in 1980. So our distillery in Fiji was commissioned in 1980 by the Fiji Sugar Corporation. We'd been growing sugarcane since the middle 1800s, but never had a rum distillery, because the company that owned the sugar mills at that time was a company called Colonial Sugar Refineries, and they already had a rum distillery in Sydney Harbour at Pyrmont and making a rum called Inner Circle Rum. So they had no need for a distillery in Fiji. But once they sold the sugar mills to the Fiji Sugar Corporation, the Fiji government, then they commissioned the building of our distillery. And I think our column stills came from Canada, and we've got a 3-column still for our rum spirit, and we've got a 4-column still which we're using for neutral spirit, and we have 2 pot stills, a 5,500 litre and a 10,000 litre traditional Jamaican double thumpers. So that rounds out
Can you describe those a little bit? Because I'm not familiar with that type of still.
Okay, well, I guess if you'd be familiar with a whiskey still. So a whiskey still they'll have their wash pot, and then they may have a spirit pot. So what we have is a pot which is like the wash pot, and then we have 2 small reboilers which are about 3,000 litres each. So if you can imagine the wash pot goes up the wash column and up through the line arm, and that would normally go to a condenser and then be taken away for redistillation for spirit. What we do is it goes into the reboiler, which is already charged with the heads and tails from the previous distillate, and the steam vapors that go in there boil that liquid, and then it goes as a vapor across into the next reboiler, and it boils the liquid in there, and then it comes out and goes to our condenser. So it's almost like three distillation processes in one step. So rather than redoing it, so what happens is you're effectively taking all of your heads and tails from the distillation before in the low wine and high wine. And it gets a little complicated because you take the low wine and you put it into the high wine reboiler, and the high wine into the low wine reboiler. So it's almost reverse. But at the end of that distillation, once you've done your heads, the first reboiler, which is your low wine reboiler, will be pretty much 0% alcohol, and that will drain to waste. And then the high wine reboiler will be, I don't know, maybe about 30, 40, 50%, depending on how fast you've run the stills, and that will go back down into the high wines and then recharge the stills again. So you're collecting everything and redistilling it all at the same time with your fermented wash, which is a little bit different to whiskey. But it does give it some different unique characteristics, which are very typically Jamaican or Caribbean, that heavier, more herbaceous, more fragrant, aromatic styles that are typical with maybe what you'd call I don't know, what do they call them? A British Navy rum. That style of rum. So that becomes part of our component. So we have the continuous still, the columns, which is what we take when we distill those. We're taking spirit off at about 95% alcohol, and I call that our skeleton. So the product is lean, it's clean, it's high strength, and then the pot still I call our flesh. So it's more aromatic, more fragrant, more flavoursome. And we blend the two together depending on what type of rum style we're making to produce a heavier style of rum or a lighter style of rum.
Well, Liam, you got me thirsty. Speaking of, rum, we have 3 delicious rums here. Which one should we start with?
It looks like you got the Barty 2-year-old white rum there. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yep, that's on your right. Well, we should start with that one.
Beautiful.
So this Barty is the Fijian word for the warrior, and Ratu is the Fijian word for the chief. So the Barty, this comes from our column still, and I've got some. I've actually already prepared a sample in advance. I like to add just a little bit of water to it. That's at 40%, so I like to add a little bit of water. But when you smell and taste this, you get some really nice aromas of vanilla and coconut, which are coming from the aging in the 25,000-litre white oak American vats.
Like a little bit of popcorn, like buttered popcorn.
Yeah. It's got a nice pepperiness on the palate, but it's still soft and smooth. It's got a little bit of a citric sort of character, a citrus finish to it.
Delicate, nicely balanced.
Yeah, nice mouthfeel. From the front of the palate to the back, you get a nice feel. It's warm, a little bit of pepperiness. You get vanilla and creaminess. And it works very well.
Dangerous.
Well, it's only dangerous if you don't drink in moderation.
That's the problem. It's so good. I don't want to drink in moderation. I want to just keep drinking. I would put this personally. One of my favorite things to do with rum is to make a daiquiri. And, I love the rum on its own, but I also really love rum in a daiquiri. I don't know. I love a daiquiri. It's that sweet citrus and boozy rum basedness, I guess. And this, I feel like, would be a very crushable daiquiri.
Yes, it does. It does very well, because the way that I try to do the rums is to make it versatile. So they're good to drink neat or straight. They're good to drink with your favorite mixer, but they also work well within a cocktail. So they have this versatility. They're not just a one-shot wonder. So it's got that versatility that it can work with other heavier fruits and flavors for cocktails, because there's enough heat and warmth in the spirit itself, but the heat and warmth is not volatile. It's just a nice almost like a calming warmth and a peppery spice.
Now, tell us a little about the Barty. You said it's 2 years old, but it's pretty much white. So the bottles, did you do some filtration after maturation?
Well, after this is matured in 25,000 litre American white oak vats. So they're quite large.
Holy hell.
They're quite large, and you don't have a lot of surface area contact versus a barrel. So, and also the oak inside is not being charred or broken open. So it's just completely sealed white oak. So there's no charring inside the vat or the oak timbers, so it doesn't get heavy penetration into the timber. So it gets a very light contact, but it gets enough contact where it still picks up that beautiful vanilla and coconut aromas that you get from American oak. You get a little bit of color. If you look at the bottle, you'll see that it's got a little bit of a tinge of color to it.
I was looking at that. I was really intrigued by that. It's kind of got almost like a waxy color to it, where it's clear, but it's not like crystal clear. It's like got a slight hue to it.
Yeah, that's it. It has a slight hue, and that's just from the American oak. So we then polish it with coconut charcoal or activated coconut charcoal, which is, we selected that because it's not as aggressive as coal-based charcoal. And if you look at one of the particles, or pick up a particle of coconut shell activated carbon or charcoal activated carbon, the charcoal activated carbon looks like that asteroid that, who was it? Bruce Willis saved the world in Armageddon. It looks like it looks like one of those little asteroids with pockets and holes all over the place to absorb things. The coconut shell is a lot finer, a lot less aggressive, so it takes a little bit of color out to tone the color down, and then it leaves the flavor in. But one of the really nice things it does, it gives a really nice, smooth, creamy mouthfeel in the middle of the palate. Doesn't add any flavor. It just takes a bit of color out. It gives it a nice, clear, crystal polished look to the liquid, and then gives a nice, smooth, creamy middle palate. So it does some really nice things that way.
I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, well, this not. I should have my cornflakes or Cocoa Pops here and pour it over, but yeah, it's very nice. It's very smooth. It's got nice mouthfeel, even in the glass. When I've watered it down to 20%, it's got beautiful legs on it. It's still got viscosity. It has a nice mouthfeel, and it leaves a really nice, sweet, clean flavor lingering in the mouth.
It definitely does. No, it's really nice. It's quite balanced. Like I was saying, it's fun. It's a nice, easy sipping rum. I also could see this is a great introductory rum for someone like myself who's new to rum. Obviously, my background being whiskey, rum is a newer category for me. But this is definitely a rum that I could see as a introductory sipper.
Yeah, it's I guess you'd call it. Oh no, I won't say. But it's our white rum to use in your rum and coke, or with cocktails, pina coladas, whatever cocktail that you would use a white rum or a vodka in. Then I'd replace the vodka with this every time, because I think it has much better mouthfeel than a vodka. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So that, and one of the things I like, or one of the things I really like to bring to our rums, is that mouthfeel. I spent a lot of time in the Australian wine industry as well, and worked with some really interesting winemakers. And one of the best, was voted best in the world 2 times, was a guy called Philip Shaw, and he used to be our winemaker at Rosemount Wines. And the main thing he used to try to achieve was shape of flavour and mouthfeel. He said, Liam, don't worry about all the aromas. Don't worry about the lychees and the melons and the peaches and all of that. How does it feel in the mouth? Has it got balance? And if the wine and the grapes are good, all of that will be there. So the way that I look at our rum, if we've done our fermentation right, our molasses is right, and we've done the fermentation right, and we get the distillation right, then what we're really looking for is getting that balance, that mouthfeel, so that you feel like picking the glass up and having another sip. It's not just, oh yeah, that was interesting, but I won't have it again.
Gotcha.
So I guess that's the
No, it makes
background.
perfect sense. So you actually brought up a really interesting point. There's something I was going to ask, and I'm glad you brought it up. Molasses versus sugarcane-based rum distillates. You said you're using molasses, but you said you grow sugarcane. So,
well,
can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, the three biggest income earners for Fiji is, number one, well, it was tourism until we closed the gates. So that was number one. Number two is Fijians returning or sending money from overseas back to Fiji is the number two income earner. And number three is sugarcane. But we're only very small. I think the worldwide production is the biggest farm crop in the world, apparently, sugarcane, with something like 240 million hectares planted. But a lot of that's for ethanol production, particularly in Brazil. But for us, it's for sugar, and we're only very small. I think the world production is about 1.8 billion tons of the sugar itself, and ours is about 1.8 million tons of sugar cane. So we are only small. We produce about 80 to 100,000 tons of molasses, and we live right next door to the sugar mill, and we buy the molasses and truck it over directly from the sugar mill. Now, we don't use the juice because it's not our mill. We just get what we're given, and it's molasses. But lucky for us, in Fiji, the soil is extremely rich with volcanic and alluvial floodplains. You can spit a watermelon seed on the ground today and you have a plantation tomorrow. So we have pawpaw trees growing up all over the distillery in some of the strangest places because a minor bird ate a seed and had a poop. And the next thing you know, you got banana trees, you got stuff growing where, who planted that? Some minor bird. So it's very rich. The soil is very, very rich. So our sugarcane has a perfect climate, plenty of rain, plenty of water, plenty of humidity. And the mill is very old. So because it's very old, it doesn't extract all of the sugars from the molasses that a more modern mill would. So our good luck with that is that it leaves a lot of fermentable sugars in the molasses, and we could have up to 55% fermentable sugars in our molasses at the beginning of the season. I think it might get down to maybe 52 or 53%, but in modern mills, they'd be more like 45 to 48%. So we're probably about 10% advantage to modern mills because of the process that our Fiji Sugar Corporation is quite old and, I don't know, not efficient is probably a way to say it, which is good for us. So we get the molasses straight across to us, and we ferment it. It takes about 72 hours of fermentation. We put it in 30,000 litre stainless steel vats, and our temperature control is not perfect. We run cascade water over the vat to create some evaporative type cooling. And we try to keep it down below 35 degrees Celsius. What's that in Fahrenheit? I should remember that. But anyway,
your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, well, Google it up. So we keep it about under 35. If it gets too hot, then you can actually cook it, kill the yeast, and you don't ferment out all the sugars. Also, if it gets too hot, you can create some more burnt characters, which are not what you're looking for. If it gets too cold, the yeast will go to sleep and it won't ferment out all the sugars. And believe it or not, it can get too cold sometimes in Fiji. It can get down to 18 degrees overnight in the winter time. It'll be here somewhere on Google. What is it? What is 35 C to Fahrenheit? Okay. Well, that's 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so 35 is, we don't want to go over 95 degrees Fahrenheit in our fermentation.
Gotcha.
Below that. So that takes about 3 days. And once that 3 days is done, we like to put it straight into the still. If you leave it there sitting too long, it's a bit like when you bite an apple and you leave it on the bench, it starts to go brown and oxidize very quickly. So as soon as the fermentation is over and all the CO2 is dissipated off the top, protecting it, we want to have it in the still so it's a nice clean ferment into the stills. And the molasses gives it a heavier characteristic. And in the dark rum, you'll be able to actually taste those characteristics of molasses coming through, that golden syrup, treacle, brown sugar, caramel. Even I ever had Vegemite over in the United States. It's got that yeasty Vegemite sort of character to it as well.
We have it over here. I just never had it personally.
In Australia, you sort of brought up on it. I don't know why. Maybe it's a torture of some description. Our parents put us through.
I mean, isn't living in Australia torture enough with all the giant spiders?
Oh, spiders, snakes, great white sharks, you name it. If you can die from
the
something. The
common joke about Australia is that everything is trying to kill you.
Yeah, that's true. I actually worked in a pub up in the Gulf of Carpentaria in far north Queensland. And when I first went there, this was the people who bought Beanley Rum. They owned the pub before they bought the rum distillery. And when you're the young bloke, you have to go out and do all the rotten jobs. My job was to turn over all the bar stools and kill all the redback spiders that were living underneath the bar stools so they didn't bite our customers and cause them to die. So that was my first job, killing redback spiders.
Fun. Oh, no. I want to visit Australia, but I might need a protective suit when I come there. It's nope, nothing can hurt me. Get away from me, like a pillowed protective suit.
Hey Sam, I lived here till 2003, then spent the 2003 till last year in Fiji. So I had 17 years in Fiji. So I had 40 odd years in Australia, and I survived. You will survive. It's okay.
Okay. I'm just making jokes. So why Fiji? What brought you to Fiji?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I was we'd been to Fiji on holidays a few times, and I found the first time we went to Fiji on holidays with my family. This is my first family. They've all grown up now, and we were there for 2 weeks, and it took me 6 months to fire back up when I came back to Australia. I was general manager of Rosemount Wines, and it took me 6 months to get back to speed. The one thing I found about Fiji is when you went there, you just completely relaxed. It was insane how relaxed you became. The people are so peaceful and relaxing and caring, and they don't care about whether you got a fancy car or a fancy house. They just care about simple things like having a good meal and a few drinks and enjoying people's company. So eventually my company got merged and I got sick of the corporate life, and I went to Fiji and bought a resort.
You bought a resort?
I bought a resort. And yeah, well, it was called Crusoe's Retreat. I turned up there, and the president of the association, the resort association, said, "Liam, what did you do that for? How to turn a large fortune into a small one, is to buy a resort." bit like starting a distillery, I think. So anyway, we had the resort, and I ended up selling the resort, and I stayed in Fiji, and I met a Fijian lady there, and we've got 2 Fijian boys. I'm a Fijian citizen, and I went back to work for the brewery, which was owned by Carlton United Breweries in Fiji, where we made Fiji bitter. And I thought it'd be an easy job because I'd handled sales before, and I never worked so hard in all my life. And then I realised we had this beautiful rum distillery that had all these rums, and I thought, no, I'm going back to making rum. So I asked them, "Do you mind if I go and have a look at the distillery and help with the rum?" And they said, "What do you know about rum?" I said, "Don't you guys read resumes?" I was the youngest rum distiller in Australia at the first and oldest rum distillery. in Australia at Beanley Rum and won all these awards. Oh, okay. So anyway, I went over to the distillery and put some blends together. We won a whole lot of awards in London at the London Wine and Spirit competition. They said, oh, okay, looks like you know something about rum. So I pretty much created my own job.
Don't you love when that happens?
Oh, it was the best. It's been the best job, you know. When I was at Beanley Rum, I used to always say the best job I ever had was making rum. If I ever got the opportunity to do it again, I'd grab hold of it with two hands and not let go of it. So it turned up, and isn't it surprising how life prepares you for what maybe you should have been doing in the end? So all the things I did before led me to back here to making rum and in a place like Fiji. So that's how I got to be in Fiji and spent the last 17 years there. We've still got family there. We've got a house in the village. We've got a house in Suva, and we've got one of my wife's daughters. She's stuck in Fiji, can't get back, and we've got a grandson living with us, little Daniel, and we've got another one of her kids who played for Fiji in the sevens team, and he's over here with us as well because they can't get back to Fiji. So everyone's locked out of where they're supposed to be. It's all been reversed.
What do you think you guys will be able to go back finally?
Who knows? The way things are going, maybe next year, or who really knows? But not complaining. It's been really good. You know, I've enjoyed the last year being here full time with my family and watching my boys grow up and being a helpful father rather than a far away father. So,
sure, yeah. I can only imagine what that must have been like, you know, though. Friggin' COVID happens and you're locked out of where you've called home. Your family's all locked out and scattered. Must be pretty scary.
Oh, it's okay. We're surviving really well. We've got the little boy. He calls me daddy, which is really strange because he's his, you know, nice, beautiful Fijian boy. And I pick him up from his little school. He comes running out and grabs this white fellow. Says, "Hey, daddy!" And everyone looks and go, "Oh, he's a funny kid." But we've got big hearts, big hearts. So it really makes a difference in the family. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit more about the Barty White, you know, kind of the inspiration behind making a 2-year-old white rum instead of, you know, why not just make a white rum and not age it? Why age it in these vats?
Well, the main reason for the aging is because one of our close by markets is Australia. And in Australia, the legal requirement to be called a rum is that it must be aged in wood for a minimum of 2 years. So that's probably the main reason. You could drink our, and we actually have a drink in Fiji, which is cane spirit, which we call cane spirit, and that is unaged rum. And you can drink it straight from the still, bring it down to drinking strength, and it's got beautiful characteristics by itself. The oak maturation just gives it a bit of softness, gives a bit of that coconut and vanilla character, and adds complexity to it. So the main reason is for the age statement to be able to sell to the Australian consumers. Otherwise, it's not a rum.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense.
So then,
you know,
because
like with Scotch, it's got to be 3 years minimum.
Yeah. So because we do that, we send that as our export benchmark. So we say, if it's good enough for export to Australia, then that's our benchmark for the rest of the world. So all our age statements, when we put an age statement on, is the youngest rum in the bottle.
Sure. But there could be older rum in there, is what you're saying.
Yes. Well, there will be, just because of, you know, we don't take it out. When it hits 2, we don't take it out. It can continue on aging. I've got some of this very rum, which is now 14 years old. I do an expression of this as a 10-year-old as well. So we let it mature on. But the majority of it is used for exactly this. Our local market in Bounty, 1-year-old. In the Fijian market, we use 1-year-old rum. and the Australian and the international market's 2-year-old rum.
Gotcha. Now, talk to me a little bit about the Fijian culture. I'm looking at the back of this bottle here. Barty were the fearsome Fijian warriors and protectors of their homeland. Fijian culture was forged in war, and the Barty were strong, proud, and revered the world over. You know, how did you get the name? Why go with more, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, why go with Barty and Ratu? Why go with, names that are history and very culturally tied to Fiji?
Well, it's a Fijian product, and that's what the Fijians wanted, to be able to be recognised and take their product to the world, so it was recognised as traditional Fiji product. The Fijian rugby league team is called the Fijian Barty, which is the Warriors. So pretty much it's just in recognition of being Fijian, and the Barty being the warrior, which is the one that is, he looks after everything. The chief, which is the Ratu, tells the warrior what to do, and the Barty does what the Ratu, the chief, tells him to do. So it's really just in recognition of our culture, where we're from, the Fijians that are involved in all the aspects of the production of it. And when you talk about it, we have a rum in Fiji we call Bounty Rum, but Bounty Rum doesn't really relate to. It's more of European indication from the HMS Bounty. So, Barty and Ratu, we felt, really worked well and identified with the culture and identified truly with Fiji. As you can see with my shirt, all of our logos and all of the things go back and give respect to the traditions of Fiji and the Fijian people and their culture.
Yes, talk to me about the logo, please.
The logo. Well, the logo, if you go back through history, then the Fijians and the British Navy sailed the 7 seas, and the British were over there, and they came across Fijians, and when they first met, the brave warriors used to use their weapon, and the Navy defended themselves with their weapons. So it was like a meeting of the cultures. So it symbolises the meeting of the two cultures and coming together in partnership with the two different cultures. So Fiji became a British colony a long time ago, so back in the 1800s, and that was when they started making sugarcane. So there's a lot of history with the British community with Fiji, as the Queen and the Prince of Wales, they've all visited Fiji on various occasions. So they had a great love for Fiji as well.
Gotcha. So let's move on to the next edition. Do you want to do the Ratu 5 or the Ratu 8?
I would do the Ratu 5-year-old, the dark rum. The signature is the liqueur, so do the dark rum. Now this quite complex, this rum.
Oh, what a nice cork pop.
Oh yeah, I can smell it already.
Beautiful color. Dark. Almost like Coca-Cola.
Yeah, that's quite a good description. It is sort of in that sort of color range, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, this rum here is a combination. Actually, when I was making this rum, I was thinking about whiskey drinkers. So if you've tried a lot of, well, I was when I was trying a lot of the super premium rums, I found that a lot of them seem to have a high level of sweetness, and they were sweet something and then faded away to nothing. And then you'd want to jump off and go and drink a whiskey or a bourbon or a scotch or something with more complexity and layers of flavour. So what I tried to do with...
my God. Wow. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'd had a taste before of the entire range, including the spiced ones, but just this is stellar.
Well, as I was trying to explain, this was to give. This is rum that drinks like a whiskey. So it's 50%. Excuse me, 50% pot still rum, and it's 50% continuous still rum. The pot still gives it that really nice, savory, earthy, leathery sort of characteristic and aroma.
Mm-hmm.
The continuous still gives it a nice sweet, almost like some baked cakes in there, and you get the hints of molasses and licorice in the middle to back palate. So when you smell it, the aromas are leather and savory and smoky oak. Then on the palate, it's nice and sweet at the front, which reminds you of rum. But there's no sugar, there's no dosage, there's no sugar in this. It's just a dry rum. And then on the way through, you've got licorice and molasses and a long, dry finish that's nice and savory, nice and well balanced.
Oh,
mouth filling. So this is my rum for whiskey drinkers.
what are we looking? We're at 40% on this.
Yeah.
I would have thought we were a little higher. It's so full-bodied and rich and just beautifully balanced.
Yeah, that's the pot still. The pot still really gives it that nice, heavy characteristics. The continuous still gives it some balance and sweetness. The oak aromas and the licorice and the molasses give it some sort of baked cake sort of feel to it. Even hints of chocolate. But nice and soft and smooth in the mouth.
Yeah, no, this is
niceness. And if you add a little bit of water in there, just a splash of water, and watch how it opens up again.
May have added a little too much water. We'll see.
Well, you can always add more rum.
I like that answer. Too much water, have more rum. So are there any plans for a higher proof, or particularly like a cask strength Ratu?
Well, further on up the age line, we've got a 58% musket barrel finished rum. We have a 46% 16-year-old Latoka dark rum, and we have a 20-year-old Sleeping Giant, which has got 58%. Cask strength, I haven't done a cask strength one at this point in time. That could happen. I'm working on a rum which I'm calling the Heart of Hearts, which is a 100% pot still rum, and taking the heart from the heart of the rum. And we may do that at a higher, maybe a barrel strength. That could be interesting, 78%. But at the moment, we do have a 58, a 46 above this one, but they're older expressions.
Gotcha. And did those make it to America yet?
Not yet. Would love to. I think we've had some as samples over there. Some people may have tried it in the before we had COVID on some of our trips there. I'm pretty sure we've tried it over there. This has been a bit of a speed hump the last 12 months, bit of a handbrake to happiness, but I'm sure we'll get through it all and keep going. We're getting interest in Australia in those products I just talked about. We showed it at Whiskey Live, and people came to master classes just so they could try it. So they're very interested in it.
We have a comment from one of my regular viewers and watchers. He was asking if you're doing any coloring, chill filtering, or sugaring of the rum. Now, I know you mentioned there's no dosage, there's no, sugaring of it. but you didn't touch on coloring or chill filtration.
Chill filtration, yes, we do chill filtration. We're not happy to do it, but we do it because the consumers don't like to see any haze or any of that white swirl, the protein haze you can get resting on the bottom.
Sure.
We probably wouldn't get a lot of problem with that in the United States, but just depends. If it goes to a cold part of the world, then you've pretty much got to do it to keep the liquid integrity there, but you don't need to do it. So we do all of our export product. We do chill filtration. We take it down to zero degrees, which is the bare minimum. I think ideally we should take it down to -10, but 0, we say that's about enough. Coloring on this dark rum, we do use some caramel for color, but the amount of caramel we're using is 0.025 grams. It's a very, very small amount just to give it that nice, just to enhance the color a little bit for us for our visual.
So that 0.025 grams, what is that in reference to? Like how big of a batch are you adding that 0.025 to?
Well, that's in per liter. So that's
0.025 per liter?
Per liter, yeah. It's only very small.
How big is usually a batch of the 5-year? How many liters are you doing at a time?
Probably the smallest batch we'd do would be 5,000 liters.
So 0.025 times 5. So we're looking at about 125 grams.
Yeah, it's
coloring.
Yeah, it's very, very small, and it's based from natural sugar caramel. So
it's not E150.
No, just burnt caramel. That's it. A bit of burnt caramel for color. Hardly makes any difference to the aroma. Well, it makes no difference to the aromas or taste, but it just adds.
The amount you're adding is so minuscule. Yeah. It's not like you're a bigger brand. I'm not going to name any names, but another very well-known rum brand that you can taste the caramel, the E150A added to it.
No,
and
Our purpose for adding caramel is really just to keep consistency of color on the shelf. So depending on the barrels that you use, you'll get different amounts of color coming from the barrels. So what we're aiming to is to have a consistent color standard, so that if we do one batch today and we do another batch in a year's time, when they sit on the shelf together, the color matches up. If they sit on the shelf and they're different colors, people start getting confused. There's something different with the rum. There's something changed with the rum. So it's more for visual consistency. It's not really for enhancing anything. It's just visual consistency. Hence the very small amounts that you use. It's to bring it back in line, to keep the product in a standard, so that when we look at it, when we smell it, when we taste it, we're keeping consistency and a standard, so the consumers are always getting what they expect to get, a consistent product.
So Cohen asked another question here. He's got a question for us. He says, is there any Dunder used in the making of the rum?
No Dunder used. Nothing like the Jamaicans or the Caribbean producers do. We just use the molasses, the water, and the yeast, and that's it.
Now, I'm not familiar. What is Dunder?
Dunder is the leftover from the still. So once you do the distillation, you've got the waste, which is left over, the water and the components that are left. So when you're doing the washing of the alcohol, you're separating alcohol from water. So the first process is separate all the alcohol from all the water. That separation can be used to add into the base for a fermentation, because it'll have quite high acid levels. And when you increase the acid level in your fermentation, you increase the amount of esters that you create. When you increase the esters, you get more of those fruity characters, those banana-y sort of characters, isoamyl ethyl acetates that give that banana-y, can give apple-y sort of characters from aldehydes. So they're things that we haven't trialed, and it's not to say that we wouldn't do that, but it just hasn't been part of our process or part of our style. So to do something like that would change the style of the product. And at the moment, we're just doing the best we can to keep the style we've got without making it more complex. So that's our style. That's what it is at the moment. We're working to keep that. And I'd really like to try some of those. I really would. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see what it could do.
Experimentation is the name of the game. You got to experiment. You got to be able to keep up, and of course, you have your typical styles. The Barty white. Got it right, Barty? Yeah, I got it right,
Yep.
Barty. I was getting confused. I was getting either like Batu or Ratu in my head. I can never remember which it is.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. But what happens is once you drink more rum, it takes the confusion away. Because I've found three things happen to you when you drink rum. The first one is it makes you think you're smarter than what you really are, so it's good to have for breakfast. The second one is it makes you think you're a lot braver than what you really are. And then the third one is sometimes it just relaxes your mind and helps you sleep and take any thoughts away that are of no value. So it has some medicinal purposes there for relaxation and calming.
Gotcha. I don't know, man. Something about this Ratu 5-year dark. I'm just really in love with it.
Well,
let's go back to talk about your packaging design, your labels. They're elegant labels. It's really interesting packaging. There's like this, what is sugarcane like tie right here?
Some of the it's quite intricate labeling, and if you saw some of the traditional clothing or adornments that the Fijians would wear for a traditional ceremony, they would consist of whale bones or the bones of dead whale where they've carved it and they've hung it and made a decoration which they hang around your neck. So, and then they're woven with palm leaves to hold them all together, and this rope that they make from coconut shell husk. So they make this rope from the coconut shell husk. So all natural ingredients and all natural products that they put together as part of the decoration for their ceremony. So we took those and we used those as part of the decoration. So when you see the Ratu being the chief would wear that type of decoration as a symbol of his stature in the community, whereas the Barty would wear something more like the Polynesian and the Melanesian tattoos, where they decorate their skin with the tattoos. So the Barty is more like the tattoo sort of adornment that the Polynesian and the Melanesians like to have, and the Ratu is more of the decoration of the clothing that the chief would wear at a traditional ceremony.
Gotcha.
So it's all, once again, it's all linking in back to the culture and the community and showing respect to the Fijian culture that we're a part of. And when we take it to the world, we'd like to represent Fiji in the way that we would expect to be represented. If you looked at Fiji Airways, they do a very similar thing with their planes. They use the masa and the tapa, and they type on the same sort of patterns as what we've got here. So we're just keeping in the theme of how Fiji likes to present itself to the rest of the world, so that they can see it's authentic, it's cultural, it's traditional, and it's all about their people of Fiji.
Beautiful. Let's talk about the signature now. I hope you don't mind me jumping around. Handcrafted rum to honor the Fijian chiefs. Ratu rum. And this is what piques my interest and honestly concerns me. And concern is the wrong word, but it puts me off a little bit because I'm like, well, what? With natural and artificial flavors, and I appreciate the fact that you're being transparent with the caramel color on the signature, and this is coming in at 35%. So talk a little about this then. Because this isn't the spice where, there's spice flavoring, right? This is something different.
Yes. This is a liqueur. So if you understand what liqueurs are, they've been sweetened by sugar, one. Then they have different flavors, like, say, I don't know, like Cointreau, or like, I don't know, what's that very popular rum, coconut liqueur? Well, that's one. Yeah, but I wouldn't have used that one. There's another one, I just can't think of the name of it. But anyway, what we've done with this is there was a rum. One of the owners of the company that we work for, a guy, he's Terry Davis. He started a business in Australia called Cellar Master Wines, and then he became the boss of Coca-Cola. So he was a wine person. So when I was making this rum, I wanted to make a rum that had complexity and layers of flavors. And when we were doing the flavors, some of the flavors that we couldn't replicate for ourselves in Fiji, we went to a flavor house to have them make the flavor for us. So the flavor can be what they used to call was nature identical, but now because they want to make everything, I don't know, change all the rules, they call it artificial. Now, whether it's artificial or not, I'm really not sure. It's, I guess, where it's artificial, it's created in a factory that produces flavors from base materials or compounds that are the same as in other flavors. Like say banana, a banana flavor could be produced from isoamyl ethyl acetate, which is part of the fermentation process. But that would be considered to be an artificial flavor because it didn't come directly from the banana. Does that
Interesting.
make sense? So they're flavors that smell and taste the same as from the natural, but sometimes the natural is not always that easy to keep natural because, they've got pesticides and pollution, rain, so you can look at it in a good way or a bad way, whichever way you choose to look at.
I was just curious. I appreciate you shining some information on that. I try to refrain from judgment, of course, although it's also passing judgment is somewhat what I do for work. Shoe fly, go away. I know this is tasty, but this is my tasty, not your tasty.
Now, this is a liqueur, so it will be sweet, but this is for after dinner. After dinner, instead of having a port or a muscat or a Tokay or a Bailey's Irish Cream or something like that. This is 8-year-old dark rum from 200-litre bourbon barrels, finished off with American mocha oak to give it a nice charry, chocolatey character. Then it's got chocolate, coffee, coconut, and orange, and you swirl it around, and every time you smell it and taste it, you'll pick up some different characteristics.
Very sweet.
Liqueur.
No, I know. It caught me by surprise is all what I'm saying.
Well, on liqueur scale, this is on probably the minimum level, entry level to liqueurs. If we were any lower on the sugar, then we wouldn't be classified as liqueur. So we've got
interesting.
We've got 250 grams per litre of sugar, and I think the lowest you can go to is about 170 grams, and then you're not a liqueur, but very sweet. On the higher side, some of the things like Cointreau and Malibu and those products would be 400 grams per litre. So this one here is, you try this in your coffee on the way to work in the morning. It'll make the whole workplace look interesting all day. If you give this to your partner at the end of the night, it will make you look interesting. or you take a couple and make them look interesting. It works either way. Doesn't discriminate. So you've got some beautiful charred oak rum coming through. You got the dark chocolate, you got coffee, you got coconut and orange. Put it in the freezer, pour it over your ice cream.
I can see this being a nice topping for ice cream. You know, maybe what's the word I'm looking for? Hang on, it'll come to me in a second.
Well,
no, go ahead.
At Whiskey Live, the biggest selling product at our trade stand is this. At Whiskey Live, the third biggest selling product across the whole show in Australia is this. When people come to the trade stand to see a rum trade stand and a whiskey show, we say, look, go and try all the other whiskies first. When you've got your share of peat bogs and open cut coal mines and your mouth's really dry, come back and see us and we'll rehydrate. And this is the rum that everyone goes to for their rehydration and one of the biggest sellers. So the consumers are still, they like to buy dry, but they drink sweet, simply.
I'm not bashing it. I almost have that word. You're like, you simmer it down. Reduce. Yes, exactly. Reduce.
There we go. A bit of teamwork, Sam. We got there in the end.
It took a minute. I feel like this would be really good reduced into like a syrup and poured over ice cream or over like a cake or something.
It actually goes really nice with cherries and cola. One of those, those new fancy super premium cherry cola fizzy drinks. I can't think of I can't think of the name.
We don't have them out here.
But it goes very well. They used to. They were. I don't know where they still are. They were serving it on business class as a cocktail of choice on Fiji Airways, and it was a very, very big seller for them.
Could you? I mean, I know the alcohol proof is lower, it's 35%, so 70 proof. Could you infuse like cherries with this? If you left cherries like soaking in a vat of this?
Yeah, you could.
That could be a really nice dessert. I think, that would sell pretty well in like a restaurant or something over on Fiji or in Australia where it's like, yeah, here, have our, Ratu 8-year signature infused cherry or whatever.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it would work very well. There's some
Cohen
places
says make some rum cake with it. It would maybe be good.
I would make any cake with this, but I'd be drinking it whilst I'm making the cake. So I'm not sure how the cake would work out. But I think,
why not both?
Well, I'm greedy. I'll give the cake a little bit.
One of my horror stories of booze is several years back, I was trying to make Scotch whiskey caramels. And we used almost the last of my Lefroy 18 to do it, and they got fucked up because we didn't measure like a timing right or something, so they never hardened. They were all like liquidy, so we had to throw it away. But they would have been really good if they would have come out right.
Yeah, well, sadly, when we do the cooking, we make the part that makes us smarter disappear through evaporation. It leaves some really nice characters, but we do miss the alcohol component in that. But this is probably this would be our top seller. Actually, in Las Vegas, I can't even, the name of the show doesn't come to mind, but it was
The End.
It was run by bartenders. It just picked up a 100 out of 100, and
Las Vegas Spirits Awards.
Yeah. So
nightclub and bar show?
Yeah, something like that. But apparently to get 100 out of 100, 40 liquor buyers and mixologists, whoever are the judges, have to get together and agree to give it 100. Now, I can't imagine getting 4 people in a room to agree on anything, let alone 40 liquor buyers
seriously.
to agree on something. So for it to get 100 out of 100, I'm pretty sure that's the only time I've ever got 100 out of 100 for anything in my life. So
I don't think I've ever done perfect on a test either.
So yeah, unfortunately with life, we sit for the exam, we sit for the test first, and then we get the lesson afterwards. So I've had a lot of lessons. So anyway, this one's picked up 100 out of 100. Has picked up some ultimate awards and some plenty of golds. It's our biggest seller, surprisingly.
Yeah, so I have a display thing right here. You've got gold at the Frankfurt International. Looks like World Spirits Competition from San Francisco. The San Francisco, let's see, it's right here. San Francisco World Spirits Competition 2017, gold and double gold.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
Well, I think awards are really good because it gives third-party endorsements. So it's not just me. If you came and asked me, and I remember learning this a long time ago, I was in a bottle shop trying to sell someone some wine, and then I saw this guy walking around with his shopping trolley, and he was stopping and picking up different bottles of wine, and they all had medals and awards on them. And I said, "Excuse me, sir, why did you pick that bottle of wine?" And he looked at me and he said, "Well, do you work for a wine company?" He said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Well, if I asked you, you would tell me that your wine is the best wine. But if I ask the owner of the shop, he will tell me the best wine is the one he makes the most money out of, or the one he's got too much stock of. But if I walk around and see these awards, I can choose because someone else tells me that it's good besides you or the person who owns the shop." So for me, whilst awards are important because it's third-party endorsement, they're given by people from all different parts of the world with different expectations. And sometimes, Sam, you'll pick up a 100 out of 100 at one show in the US, and then you go to another show in London and you'll only get a bronze medal. And you think, well, so it really is, it's very subjective, but the fact that they're getting the awards tells you that you're heading down the right track as far as quality and style and flavor goes. So I think that's the important part of the awards, is that they're telling us producers that we're on track, and that we're giving the consumer something that they can look at as a reference point for quality.
Interesting idea. I personally don't see. I hear your opinion. I see your point of view, and I like that point of view. To me, awards are just like, okay, it's an award. You won. Here's an opinion that may or may not end up being controversial. I do not think you should be allowed to submit single barrel products, be it rum, whiskey, bourbon, whatever. I don't know, rum or bourbon or, scotch or friggin' tequila. If it's a single barrel, it shouldn't be allowed to enter an award because you can't ever replicate that.
Sam,
yeah, please go ahead.
Can I agree with you on that? I'm 100% for you. In fact, you know how we do our entries for our awards. In fact,
please tell me.
When I first started doing it, the guys at the distillery said, "Hey, boss, are you going to do a special blend?" I said, "For what?" "To enter in the show." I said, "No. If we cannot take it off the shelf, that the consumer's buying it and win an award with it, then it's not a true representation of the product." So every one of those awards,
exactly,
every one of those awards that you see have been, a lot of those awards are received by our distributors who just take a bottle of rum off the shelf and enter it. Every one that we enter is rum off the shelf. If we took those 3 bottles that you've got in front of you, we would enter them into the show, and we would be judged on what you are drinking, not on some super mix or some 1-barrel affair. And I learned that from a guy called Len Evans about 30 years ago. He was the master of judges at the Sydney Wine Competition. And there was this wine made by Lindemans that picked up trophies after trophies, best wine at the show. It was a 1970 Riesling, and it wasn't even Riesling. It was a Semillon, because we didn't know what the difference was back in those days. But it was a beautiful wine, and it was 23 years old, but you couldn't buy it. He said, it's banned from the show. So from then, I've only ever looked at anything that we've got on the shelf. You take that, enter it in the show, and that's what we'll be judged on, because that's what the consumer gets to buy and drink.
You know, my example that I like to bring up is Henry Mckenna. It is still fantastic bourbon, but it was better when it was like 25 to 30 bucks a bottle. And now you're lucky to find it for 50. And it won an award. It won like double gold or world's best bourbon one year from one of the award companies, one of the award shows. But here's the problem. It was that single barrel that won the award. It wasn't the brand overall. It was not. It's a single barrel. You know, yeah, it's similar, but it's not exactly the same ever. You know that. I know that. Every whiskey and every spirits enthusiast knows that a single barrel means 1 barrel.
Well, Sam, there's no 1 barrels amongst all those awards. They are all from whatever batch, whatever we blended, and they're all going to be a little bit different, because every blend is going to be just that little bit different. But we try to make them consistent. But every one of those awards is from a bottle off the shelf.
Sure.
that you would go and buy, or our consumer would go and buy. There's no super blends or special blends that we use to enter. It's what you see is what you get, and what awards we get is from what you see and what you buy.
I love that. So, Liam, let me ask you a question. If someone, just because it's honestly me, if I wanted to go and learn more about rum and nerd out about rum and get education on rum, is there a book or academy, like a course presenter that you recommend that can teach really good education on rum?
Wow, that is a really good question. And it's a really good question because it's very relevant to me at this point in time. I've been encouraging my company to find someone to replace me. Now, we all think that we're irreplaceable. I'd like to think that, but I know that we're not. I had an old boss of mine say, Liam, just put your arm and fist inside a bucket of water and pull it out, and 30 seconds later, you won't even know it was there. He said, you're just 30 seconds worth of memories. However, those memories have got a lot of skills attached to it that come over a period of time. And if you go back to the first thing I sent at the beginning of our talk was about learn all you can about what you do and then try it. If you learn it and you don't try it, there's no point learning it. So doing what we do is about trying it all the time. And I'm looking for someone to replace me. I don't know where you look to find someone to replace me. I'm not saying I'm special or anything, but if you think about the brands, you've got to make sure the brands are left in good hands after you create them. Is there a school? Is there a school for rum? No, there's a school for distillers, and there's a school for
IBD.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's a great course. But it's what that is. It just gives you a beginning and a slight understanding. What happens is when you get immersed in working in a distillery, you start to learn things because it's about your sense of smell, your sense of hearing, your sense of sight, your sense of just that feeling that something's right or something's wrong. And you've got to be able to understand and know all of those things, and that only comes with experience. when I'd walk into the distillery and I could smell before I even got to the still house if there was a problem. And he said, well, how would you? And I'd tell the distillers. I said, hey, guys, we've got a problem with our condensers. Oh, no, we don't. Oh, come on, guys. So they'd say, look at the temp. Yeah, I know there's been a problem because alcohol vapors are heavier than air. And you know that when the condensers are overheated, the vapors have got to be released to the atmosphere and alcohol vapors fall to the ground. So if you can smell them, then you know there's a problem. And these are the things that you've got to learn only on the job. So doing a course in distillation is good. I never had them when I was learning. They just didn't exist.
Yeah, course in distillation is like, all right, cool. Here is the intro. It doesn't matter what it says, whether it's advanced or not. It's like, all right, cool. Here is, the basic kind of. Then it's like, all right, now you want to really learn? Go be hands-on.
Yeah, because that's where...
Like you said, there's no point in learning if you're not going to try it.
Yeah, when you make a mistake, you actually can learn a lot from making the mistake. And
exactly. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake as long as you can learn from it and know better for the next time.
Exactly. It's falling down is not failure. It's not getting up is the failure. So,
exactly.
So you keep getting up and keep trying. So I think the distillation courses that they do are very good. They're very good for the technical side, the science side. But the good thing about science is once you know it, you know it. And it shouldn't really change. But experience is something that is critical. And there probably should be more opportunities for people who do the courses to be able to go and attach to a distillery to be able to get that hands-on experience. Then there's the other side of it is that making it, so fermenting it and distilling it is part of it. So fermentation and distillation is science, and once you know it, you know it. And as long as you do the fermentation right and the distillation right, you've got a product. But in the fermentation and the distillation, there will be mess ups, there will be muck ups. They could be from human error, mechanical error, or environmental error. They will happen.
100%.
Now you can't throw it out. So the real skill then comes in the maturation and the blending, which is the dark science. And that skill, you can only learn that over time by trying lots of different products, by listening to lots of different people, by learning from lots of different experiences. So the real skill is not in fermentation and distillation. The real skill, I believe, is in the blending and the maturation and the blending of the product. So the skill of fermentation is good, but it's molasses, water, yeast, and temperature. That's it. And distillation is just concentration and separation. And once you've got your style of product, as long as you concentrate and separate the alcohols at the same points at the same time, you've got it. There will be problems, and those problems will have to be fixed up in the maturation and blending, and that's where a real lot of skill comes. If you went back, Sam, and thought about the first time you tasted whiskey, compare yourself to where you are now, and you can see what a different experience it was back then to what it is now, and what you can
absolutely,
and what you can express now to what you could express back then.
100%. The first time I had whiskey, I could barely handle it. I could like choke it down and swallow it, and it burned. And now, when we finish up here, we're probably going to walk into the room behind me, behind these curtains, pour myself a nice high-proof glass of scotch, and sit back and relax.
Well, you could always take the Ratu 5-year-old. You could have said that.
Well, no, the Ratu 5-year-old is going to get shared around.
Okay, that's good. I've just got.
You started helping me earlier before we went live, Jose. He works and helps us set up the shoot. And when I was recording a bunch of videos the other day, a bunch of reviews, he was just off to the side of the camera. After I finished, I'm like, all right, here you go. Next, he's like, oh, that's good. I'm like, all right, cool. Here, let me do the next review. Here's the next product.
Oh, well, as long as he's coming back with it's good, then I'm happy.
Exactly. No. Everything I have always gets shared. Nothing I ever have gets kept only for me. What I like to do is I like to I call it my library. I don't call it a collection. I don't call it, a home bar. I call it a library. And it's like, hey, just come have what you want. Oh, that bottle's not
Yeah,
open? Yeah, okay, let's open it right now.
yeah, that's really nice. I'd love to introduce a library to our distillery. I remember watching a video streaming of, I can't remember where the guy was from, a whiskey blender from McCullum's or somewhere, and he had this room, and it was just surrounded. The walls were all surrounded with all these different bottles of their product, which is probably going back to however long they've been there, and you could pull a bottle like from the library and try it with anyone, anytime that was interested. So
I love that.
yeah, I'd love to have a room from the floor to the top shelf with every production that we made. So, we made this back in 1985. This is what it tasted like then. This is what it tastes like today. And you could see how things had either remained the same or changed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Be a great reference.
That'd be really fun. Well,
my house
Liam,
isn't big enough yet. My wardrobe's full of stuff.
So when I moved into my current flat in the Valley of Los Angeles, I live in the Valley here in LA County. I didn't have a whole lot of bottles, but I had a decent amount. And when I was touring this flat, I live with my mother, and when we were touring this condo, this flat, she's like, "Oh, look, a nice linen closet." And I'm like, "What? Linen closet? That's a home bar. That's a storage cabinet for all my booze."
Yes, well, unfortunately, my wife, she's moved all of her clothes out of our wardrobe now that I'm back here with lockdown, and she's put them into my son's wardrobe. And our walk-in robe is just full of different samples and bottles and all sorts of things. All just sitting there waiting
closet,
just in case.
I don't have a walk-in, but I have a fairly, well-sized closet, normal size. And there's random bottles here, random bottles there, swag here, swag there, a bunch of shirts and a bunch of jackets and stuff over here, and more bottles up top. And I'm like, oy vey. Well, Liam, I appreciate your time. I'm going to let you go, sir. Thank you so much for joining us, talking about Barty and Ratu. I appreciate it, and I'm going to share some more of this 5-year with some friends. So cheers.
Well, Sam, I'll just give you a cheers on that. What we say in Fiji is, God bless Australia, God save New Zealand, and thank you, God, for Fiji.
Cheers.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Liam. We appreciate you.
Okay, bye.